A day in the life of a fat person. I wake up and think, what thin lives am I going to ruin today?
Fierce Fatty is back and better than ever. Now, maybe more delusional than ever. Do you remember when our boy Cynical Dude used to do a lot of reaction videos to Fierce Fatty? And I remember one in particular. Fierce Fatty was saying something like there's giving out like 28 benefits to being fat. And that was hilarious. So if I can find that, I will link it in the description so you can go check out that video from Cynical Dude. It was great. But today, Fierce Fatty is going to tell us why they don't believe that bariatric surgery, weight loss surgery, will make you thin and healthy. Now, as a personal trainer, I might have some different ideas about that, but you'll just have to stay tuned to find out. My son had gastric sleeve surgery done a few years back, so I have some firsthand experience with it. I will briefly describe his story at the end, and I'll even show you some before and after pictures so you can see if it made him thin and healthy and what his story was. Now, as a note, I am a problematic boomer. I'm a young boomer, but I'm still a boomer. So I did not grow up with these pronouns. Fierce Fatty, since Cynical Dude used to react to Fierce Fatty, has changed their name to Vinny and now goes by they, them. But if I misgender Fierce Fatty, forgive me. I'm doing the very best I can, I promise. And so let's see what Fierce Fatty has to say.
I want to share with you the most common risks of weight loss surgery. And obviously, all surgery has risks. Most common risks: hair loss, ulcer, leaks, gastric bleeding, bowel obstruction, gallstones, dehydration, acid reflux, anesthesia-related risks, chronic nausea and vomiting, dilation of the esophagus, inability to eat certain foods, infection, obstruction of the stomach, weight gain, or failure to lose weight.
So that sounds like a really scary, long list of side effects. But she isn't telling us what weight loss surgery she's talking about. There's gastric sleeve and gastric bypass. Gastric sleeve is more popular, but some people still do gastric bypass, which tends to have a few more complications. But I researched this, and I've got a PubMed article, and it says the average incidence of post-operative complications for gastric sleeve is 2.12%, which is lower than gastric bypass, which is 3.02. And the mortality rate for gastric sleeve varies from 0.018% to 0.27%, which depends on the age, sex, comorbidities, meaning really how healthy they are, and where the operation took place. So rather than focus on the 2%, which was she's focusing on, the 2 or 3% that have, complications, how about the 98 to 97% that have no complications? So I don't know about that. I don't know why she would focus just on that. Yeah, there's risks. There's risk to any surgery, like she said, but most people have few or no side effects. From what I could find, the most common side effect seems to be bleeding side effect. Well, bad side effect right after surgery seems to be bleeding where they put the staples in. So that's 1 to 5% of people end up with that. So I guess that's fairly common. So of course, any surgery has, can have adverse effects. But what about the adverse effects of being obese? Same PubMed article that I referenced above. I'm going to read from again, and I'll link that down below. Obesity is associated with numerous chronic diseases, including type 2 diabetes, hypertension, which means high blood pressure, dyslipidemia, which means your triglycerides and cholesterol's out of whack, cardiovascular disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, obstructive sleep apnea, which my son has, and increased risk of hospitalization for COVID-19 with poor outcomes. Even a weight loss of 5 to 10% if sustained long-term can lead to improvement of obesity-related comorbidities. remember that 75% of anyone who suffers from obesity will have one of these problems, heart disease or type 2 diabetes. So 75% complications versus 2 or 3%. I don't know. You tell me which sounds better to you. All right, let's see what else they have to say.
Now, the long-term side effects are dumping syndrome, low blood sugar, malnutrition, vomiting, ulcers, bowel obstruction, and hernias. Dumping syndrome, it's basically what it sounds like. Dumping syndrome is a medical condition in which your stomach empties its contents into the first part of your small intestine, the duodenum, faster than normal. Dumping syndrome is also known as rapid gastric emptying. People with dumping syndrome experience symptoms like nausea and abdominal cramping. These symptoms happen because your small intestine cannot absorb nutrients from food that has not been digested properly in the stomach. And you basically shit your pants. You have diarrhea.
So you basically shit your pants. That has not happened to my son that I know of. He's never told his mommy if that's happened to him. I'm not saying it hasn't. Maybe I'll ask him if it ever happened. But I have seen my son go through it because we were at a Mexican restaurant. He drank a big margarita and he all of a sudden felt really hot and sweaty and didn't feel good. And he told me that's what was happening to him. And it happens to about 20% of all people that have had weight loss surgery. So that is a common side effect. But here's the thing, it's from eating too much sugar at one time. So if you stick to your diet and don't eat too much sugar, I hope my son's listening to me, then you shouldn't have dumping syndrome. But here's the other thing, is that can happen to anyone. This doesn't just happen to people that have had weight loss surgery. It could happen to you or it could happen to me. So don't eat too much sugar. That's the takeaway, right?
4.6% of people who have the surgery are dead within a year. And another study shows that 3 out of every 1,000 people die within 30 days.
I have looked everywhere for the stat that says 4.6% of all people that have bariatric surgery, weight loss surgery within a year are unalive. So I don't know where Fierce Fatty pulled that from. My sources say everything that I can find, and I will have all my sources linked in the description, say 1% are not around after a year. Now, the stat of 3 in 1,000 will not be here within 30 days. My sources say 0.18% to 0.27%. So 3 in 1,000, when you do the math, is really on the high side. That's a little bit over exaggerating. It's not that bad. And remember, if you watch my 600-pound life, you know that these people, the ones in the upper range, especially 4, 5, 600 pounds, they have such incredible problems that it wouldn't be surprising if they didn't survive even 30 days or a year. So, let's not harp on that. Let's think about the percentage, which is high, right? The 97% that do survive and go on to lose weight. So keep that in mind as we keep on going.
Here's the kicker. Most people regain weight that was lost after the surgery. So what happens normally, and obviously every single person is different. So not everyone is going to have bad side effects. Some people are going to be like, I had weight loss surgery. It was the best thing of my life. Now I'm really thin and happy and I've had no side effects and everything's great. There's going to be people who are like that, and there's going to be people who are, somewhere in the middle, and there's going to be people who have died.
Yeah, there's going to be people that have died. Of course, there's going to be people that have died. But how many people are dying from obesity? How many people are dying from obesity versus those that have had the weight loss surgery? That's what she's not comparing those. They are not comparing those apples to apples.
So this is not kind of like a blanket. This is happening to everyone, but this is what the studies are showing us. So what happens generally is that within 12 to 18 months after the surgery, people have reached their lowest weight. And then from there, that is when the weight starts coming back on. 2 years after the surgery, 46% of people have regained weight. And 4 years after the surgery, it's 63%. Presumably, year after year, that number goes up and up and up. Chances are you have this weight loss surgery, it's not actually going to make you thin.
Okay, how is she getting that it's not actually going to make you thin? Yes, after a year, and this happened to my son, you will be at your lowest weight. And almost everybody, well, not almost everybody, when you look at the chart, I'll put a little chart up here. It says the incidence of more than 10% weight gain was 23%, 51%, 64%, 69%, and 72% after 5 years, respectively. So here's the good news, though. After 5 years, we still have 28% that didn't gain. They gained nothing or very close to nothing. So that's almost 1 in 3. So that's actually pretty good if they say that 95% of all diets fail. And now we have a procedure that can make almost 30% stick. And the other ones, it doesn't say that they gained all their weight back, right? It doesn't say they've gained all their weight back. And that's the kicker. So let's think about this rationally. If someone gets the weight loss surgery and they go from 400 pounds to 200 pounds, that's pretty common. That's not an uncommon thing. So they've lost 200 pounds. Now, my PubMed article says they gain 10% or more. So let's say you've gained 10% of that back. That's 20 pounds. Now your lowest was 200, but now you weigh 220. Isn't that still a lot better than 400? What if you gained 40%? What if you gained 20% back? Now you're at 240 instead of 400. Even if you gained 50% of the weight back and you got back up to 300, isn't that still a lot better than weighing 400? Remember at the beginning where they said that even a weight loss of 5 to 10% makes a big difference in your health? I showed that graphic above. So even if you went from 400 to 360, there would still be health benefits. So I feel like they are being very disingenuous about this. We're not showing the good side of it. I don't think very few people actually go all the way back up to their old weight. I know it happens because I saw it on my 600-pound life where people 600, they get the surgery, they go to 300 and they gain it all back. But, we all got to know that those people, that's not the normal person. That isn't anybody that I've seen with weight loss surgery so far.
Lindo Bacon says, bariatric surgery would be more appropriately labelled high-risk, disease-inducing cosmetic surgery than a health-enhancing procedure.
Lindo Bacon. Do you remember this person? A blast from the past. I can't take anyone seriously if they talk about Lindo Bacon.
But what if you learned that your fears around that dreaded fat were misplaced? That overweight may confer some protection that actually results in increased longevity? That when factors such as activity, nutrition, history of dieting, weight cycling are considered, the relationship between weight and disease disappears?
Yep, that's our Lindo Bacon, the one who started the health at every size. We can thank her for that. All right, let's see what else Fierce Fatty has to say.
A study came out 2 years ago about the increased rates. Quote from this study, investigators reported a 4-fold increased risk of death by among patients who underwent weight loss surgery. People who have this surgery, they have a doubled risk of substance abuse problems. And so these are people who previously didn't have any issues with any substance abuse.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did have problems with substance abuse. They were using food. They were addicted to food. I saw it with my son. He was using food to soothe over some personal problems that he was having in college. Obesity runs in our family. The poor thing was just blessed with obese genetics. And once he got into college and I wasn't helping him with his food, he was using the food. So what do you think happens when someone that doesn't get the mental health help that they need or therapy? They're going to turn from food to alcohol. So I don't think that Fierce Fatty is correct in this. I think they did have a substance abuse addiction, but they just called it being obese or overweight. But let's trudge on, shall we?
So, weight loss surgery. Some people will lose weight and keep it off. We don't really know what percent. What we do know is that most people won't. But imagine if you're thinking, as I did going into diets, well, I'm going to be, with diets, 95% fail, I'm going to be the 5% because I really want this. I'm really desperate to be thin. And so let's pretend that you are that percent that is able to lose weight. The question that I would want to consider is, but at what cost?
Okay. We do know how many people manage to keep the weight off. I just showed you. It's 1 out of 3 that have the weight loss surgery keep almost all of the weight off. And yes, after 5 years, about 72% of them will at least gain 10% back. But that's still better than being 220 is better than being 400. So again, fierce fatty doesn't seem to be quite understanding that. And the 95%, again, the 95% of diets fail. I don't know where fierce fatty came up with this. I guess she's just repeating the same old nonsense that has no basis. We don't have anything that really says that. We don't really know. Sources that more modern sources that I could come up with say more that mostly about 80% of people gain the weight back. So I'm going to say an 80% failure rate with diets. And I'm going to say that with weight loss surgery, we don't really know the complete failure rate, meaning anyone who gains the weight all the way back. I bet you the vast majority keep at least 50% of the weight off. That's going to be my guess, my educated guess. But let's continue on, shall we?
I always think about the unicorns who do lose weight, what their life is like, what they're having to do to maintain that weight loss. How are they eating? How are they relating to food? Are they forcing themselves to move their bodies in ways that they don't like? What's their mental health like? Are they happy? Are they fulfilled? Do they like their body?
And I mentally prepared myself for this because it's going to be a hard experience for me.
You walk 2 steps.
Well, my son, that's one person that I can answer for. He is happy. He does not have to move his body in ways that he hates because it's so much easier now. He went from about 190 pounds when he was living with me in high school and going to college and got up to 315 pounds. He used to play football. He was very athletic and he could barely move anymore when he got to 315 pounds, and he's 6 foot tall and very muscular. So of course it's much easier for him to move now. He's enjoying life so much better. His mental health is better. Everything is better.
It's your choice. You can do anything that you want to your body, of course. But looking at the statistics around it, it's not actually effective. For a lot of people, they can't reverse it, especially if you've had your stomach amputated. That's gone in the bin. That's long gone.
Stomach amputated? Now that's a first for me. Have you guys heard them call that stomach amputation? Yeah, that's interesting take on it. Actually, they don't amputate your stomach. They just cut part of it out. My son had like 2/3 of his stomach gone. And oh, yes, you can stretch it back. Oh, honey, yes, you can stretch it back out. I think almost everyone that has weight loss surgery stretches it out at least a little bit. And some people stretch it out a lot. Now, it's true you can't stretch it back out to where it was before. But how is that a bad thing? If you were 400, 500, 600 pounds and they cut out, sometimes they have stomachs the size of a football. Why would you want it stretched back out to the size of a football again?
You can't grow your stomach back. It's irreversible. Is that worth a 1 in 3 chance for you to be smaller, but also have unknown side effects? I don't know.
Well, at least Fierce Fatty admits that they don't know. So I'd like to see that at the end where they say they don't know. Obviously, Fierce Fatty doesn't know because she doesn't believe in losing weight. But my son, I'm going to show you his before and after now. So I'll go ahead and put those up while I talk. You can see how large he really was and how much better he looks now. I'm so proud of him. He comes from a family history of severe obesity, and I had a cousin back in the 70s, right? This is in the 70s before people weighed 300, 400, 500 pounds. And he was that person. I have one in my family. And my father was obese, and I have sisters that are obese, and my husband has siblings that are obese. His mom struggled with, her weight. So my poor children, and myself too, I have the genes too. I have the genes to be fat. I just try really hard not to be. So my son, when he was living with me and very athletic and in high school, he was very active and he never had any weight problems. But like I said, once he went off to college, this is how he was handling some of personal problems that he was having with food. That's how he handled it. And he is so much happier. He is so much healthier. And the reason we decided to go with bariatric surgery for him is because he was young. He was healthy. He wasn't having health problems yet. And I just wanted him to get a handle on it now in his 20s, rather than being 40 or 50, 60 years old and suffering from the consequences. So I am so happy he did that. If you enjoyed this video, would you give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time.